Hello and welcome. Today's video is going to be quite simple, but what I wanted to do for a while. It's going to be recommending transfer suggestions for each of the 20 Premier League clubs for the next season, 2024-25. Now, I have put about 4 hours work into this, so don't rip into me too hard if possible. I know it's a big ask. Please, maybe don't. No, obviously I understand that people won't like this list, but I've tried to go off somewhat of real links, and then for others I've had a bit more creative freedom to go with players I think would also suit the system really well. So without further ado, we're just going to get into it. And to start with Arsenal, my least favourite club in fucking existence. As a Spurs fan, this hurt, but I think Sesko is quite likely to join Arsenal this year anyway, and I think he would fit the system really well. He's only 20. I think from what I'm hearing, Leipzig only want about £45 million, so you got to factor that in. It's a pretty good price. Obviously, he's a much better striker than Jesus is. His stats in the Bundesliga are really good for his age as well. He's already, a Slovenian international. Obviously, got bags of potential. I think could be a very, very good striker. Already is, to be fair. So I think it's a no-brainer, and I understand why Arsenal are interested. It's just a shame because obviously I'm a Spurs fan. I don't want them doing well. We're on to Aston Villa. Now this one I had a little bit of freedom with, and I looked at it and I went, I hate Matty Cash, and I also think he could definitely be upgraded at Villa. If Villa want to be ambitious, they need to be signing younger, more potential-wise targets. I thought Michael Kayode made a lot of sense. He's been playing a lot for Fiorentina this season. He's only 19, I think. He's a right back, and he's very talented. He's a good tackler. He's very fast, and he's not actually valued that highly at Fiorentina just yet. He's young. I think a 15 to 20 million pound deal would definitely be possible. Obviously, would be a massive upgrade on Matty Cash because he's terrible, and he does, as I said, put there, he does give me Udogie vibes, and obviously Udogie's been incredible this year. I think maybe don't loan him out because I think he's probably ready for first team football at Villa, but I think still there's the argument to be made that you could probably you could do it anyway, of course, but I think because they've got Champions League, they're going to want some extra squad depth as well, just in case they do something, which they won't. They'll probably drop into Europa League, which is still good for them. If they can get into Europa League. Now, Bournemouth fans, I'm sorry to the 5 of you that exist. This one might hurt a little bit, but you just gotta hear me out. Junior Firpo is ex-Barca, would bring some experience to the left-back role where you're gonna lose Kelly, and he would be fairly cheap. Like, Leeds haven't been promoted. He'd be cheap anyway, but Leeds haven't even been promoted. I mean, you're really gonna tell me you're gonna sniff your nose at an ex-Barcelona player as Bournemouth? No, you're fucking not. Calm down. Stay off your high horse. He's going to be a decent player for you. Just take it, alright? Just take it. Brentford. Now, this one I had a little bit of fun with. I thought Brentford are usually quite a club that I think will prioritise buying players no one's heard of and turning them into good players. I think especially they're going to need more attacking players. Because Tony looks like he's going to leave, and I think Mbeumo they want to try to keep, but I think there will be some interest. I think in case Mbeumo leaves especially, Odobert would be a brilliant signing. To say, relegated Burnley, so cut price maybe £8 to £12 million, some sell-on fees potentially. But he's young with bags potentially, he's like 20. Obviously he hasn't had a great year for Burnley, but no one at Burnley has. And considering his age, it's actually not been terrible. Would give a dynamic, fast option for Brentford, and obviously would fit Thomas Frank's system quite well. I think Thomas Frank looks like he's going to stay, which is great for Brentford. I think they're going to have a much better year next year, but I'm going to do my predictions once the transfer window. No, maybe not. A couple of weeks before the season starts, I'll do a Premier League prediction, but that's aside from the point. What I'm going to say, Oliver will be a great signing for Brentford. Moving on to Brighton. Now this one I had a little bit of fun with as well, as you can probably tell. Angel Gomez. Now he's obviously ex-Man United, and he's gone to Lyon, and Lille. He's done really well. 8 assists this season, which he is tied, but I think he's the highest because of the least amount of game time. Highest amount of assists in Ligue 1 with 8. Would cost a decent bit, but he's versatile, could play left wing, right wing, and attacking midfielder. I think would be a really good signing for Brighton, and he's one of those ones where, especially if he's homegrown, he's going to have a lot of sell-on potential if he does well at Brighton, and I think he probably would. It does depend who they get in as a new manager, but I think they'll probably go for someone smart. I think, considering as what I think Brighton have been a bit underwhelming going forward this season, I think he would add that flair and spark that would really help them in this current day and age. Moving on to Chelsea, like another club I really don't like, and I had to pick Osimhen. I just can't think of anyone else who would be a good signing for them other than Osimhen. Obviously, would cost a lot of money, £100 million most likely, but Napoli have had a shit year, so maybe a bit less. Obviously, was reportedly a Chelsea fan as a kid. 65 goals in 108 games for Napoli, and obviously a significant upgrade on anything Chelsea has up front right now. Obviously, it would show ambition. It would also, be a lot of money. And there's also obviously the chance he falls for the Chelsea striker curse, but I think unfortunately probably won't. Then again, Shevchenko probably shouldn't have. I think he would obviously be a good signing, but it doesn't, funny enough, look like they're going to go for him, which is very weird for me. Very weird. Now, Crystal Palace, we went for Jan-Nicolas Bestia. Now, I put there obviously good bid because I think that's fair enough, but he's been brilliant in the Bundesliga actually for Heidenheim. I think it's Heidenheim. He's had 19 goals and assists in 31 Bundesliga matches, and that's for literally just newly promoted side. It's very impressive actually. He can take a free kick. He'd be a cheap replacement for Elise. He's only 25. He looks much older, I know, but he's actually only 25. So he's entering his prime soon, and Elise is most likely going to leave. So I think he would be a very good, dependable signing. Obviously, you could just go for someone else as well as him. But I think, regardless, he'd be such a bargain considering everything. Move on to Everton. Now this one, I'm sorry, Everton fans. I know this hurts, but you're going to think about it logically. Okay, he's going to be free this summer. He has the ability, I think, somewhat to be prolific striker. At the very least, he has shown he has the ability. It's obviously ex-Real Madrid, Milan. Didn't really work out there at Milan or obviously Madrid, but he's going to be a free agent, so Everton's FFP probably won't really kick in unless he wants a really high wage, I guess. He's only 26, so he can still develop. He seems older than 26, but he is actually only 26. Serbian international. I think he'd be a good signing. I really do. And he can still develop for sure. Now, next one, Fulham. I'm sorry, but hear me out. Sergio Gomez would be a good signing for you. Obviously, a lot of people know him for the Under-17s World Cup, where England had that brilliant youth squad. But he's only 23, which I know is a bit old considering his game time, but I still think there is a player in there. Could massively improve for sure with more game time. Very versatile on the left flank, can play practically anywhere. Could give them, attack going forward. I think for the money that City are going to want from him, even if he's not a guaranteed starter at Fulham, I still think he would be a good signing if they can get him to come. Obviously, it depends. Will he actually want to leave City? Maybe because of the game time he's getting, but I don't know. Maybe he just will take the money and just sit on the bench. I don't know, but yeah, it's worth it having a go for me if you're Fulham. Moving on, Kevin Denke. Now this is one of the ones I put a lot of effort in finding because I looked at Ipswich and I went, they need a goal scorer. They need someone who is proven goal scorer, and I wanted to find an aging striker that would fit them quite well, and it was difficult. I couldn't find anyone. He's not aging, he's only 23, but he's had a brilliant year in the Belgian Pro League, and there's been a lot of Belgian Pro League talents that have left that league and have done really well, and I think Ipswich will know that, and they will try to use that to their advantage, because he obviously can have sell-on value, and he'll be a massive risk. I'm not going to say he wouldn't be. I think they would probably want at least £80 million, and that's a lot for the side game coming up, but I think they're going to need to spend some sort of money this summer to show that they want to stay up. I don't think that they're going to stay up currently based on their squad. I don't think they're going to stay up currently based on their attacking threat. I think they need someone like him, maybe not Denki specifically, but someone who is, at the very least, has, done really well this year and could improve. Moving on to Leicester. Now, FFP problems are going to be a massive issue for Leicester this summer. They're going to have to sell a lot, and they're going to not really be able to buy many players. So I looked at it and I went, who's going to be free or relatively cheap? And Christian Kwame was on the list. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say he's the next fucking, he's not the next Ronaldo. He's nowhere close to that. He's not going to be insane. But you've got to look at it logically from a Leicester perspective. They're going to have to make a few free agent signings or very cheap signings, and he does fit that bill. He's not a terrible player. He's not had a great year at Fiorentina, but he's an Ivory Coast international. His wages won't be ridiculously high. I think as a squad player, as an attacking threat, he might get like 5 to 6 goals and assists. It wouldn't be terrible because he's a free agent. I think honestly you could do much worse than Christian Kwame, and you have to factor in FFP and things like that. There aren't many better options for Leicester right now for me. Now, Liverpool, I looked at it hard. I thought maybe Weifer of Feyenoord, because obviously he has the Arne Slot connection, but I think Zubimendi would be the better shout. Maybe it's a bit of an ask considering they will want 50 million, but I also think it's one where Liverpool kind of need to show their ambition here, especially if they want to prove they still want to be a Champions League contending side next season. Because I know that may sound silly, but losing a manager like Klopp, like a really elite manager, is going to be massively difficult, whether or not they get a really good manager in as a to replace them. And I do think Isol's a good manager, but he's not at Klopp level, and I think it's going to take time. I think in that time they need to show some ambition. They've got Champions League football next year at the very least. They're a historically good club. Zubimendi's only 25, £50 million deal. Would definitely suit Arne Slot's football. And he'd be a massive upgrade on players like Endo. I do rate Endo, by the way. I don't want to seem too harsh, but, at the same time, you've got to think about it like a little bit harshly, and you've got to go, they need a better CDM if they really want to be up there. I think they're not that far off Arsenal, but they are far off City. And I think getting a really good DM is a really good building block for a squad that's aging a bit. So to add someone who's going to be there for at least another 5 years, probably 7, is not a bad start. Next up is City. This one was difficult because you look at that City squad and you go, how do you improve it? And I went, the only way you can is if you get someone like Rodrigo, and obviously it's a difficult one because he's come out in the media and says he doesn't want to leave Madrid, and that makes sense. But I think I think he will think about it logically this summer. I think Madrid will think about it logically this summer. You can't have Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., Mbappe, and Rodrigo, as well as Valverde, you got to remember, who also has to either fit in that midfield or play a right wing, as well as trying to develop Endrick and Arda Güler, especially Endrick. It's just not going to happen. I think they're going to have to look at it and they're going to go, at least one of those has to go. I think Rodrigo will unfortunately be the one that will get the chop. I think Madrid will either tell him, you can basically sit on the bench because we're not going to prioritise you, or he's going to think that and he's going to force a move away. And I think City, from what I hear, are interested. I think an £80 million deal would be a decent buy for City. One of the best wingers in the world. Wasn't a big fan of him until this season, but I think he's really improved his game. I think would be a very, very good signing for City, and I think it would make sure that they tighten their hands on the trophy at least next year. Now United, I'm looking at it from the perspective Ten Hag stays. The perspective Ten Hag stays, Diamond I think would be a brilliant signing. If not, the target changes a bit. I still think Diamond should be a signing they go for regardless. But you could argue it could change considering the manager. But right now, considering it's Erik Ten Hag, Diamond would be brilliant. He's right-footed, young, 20 years of age. but his physicality, passing, and tackling ability is actually exceptional. Go watch a few highlights of him. He's mental, really, really good young centre back. Would cost 40 to 50 million pounds and would suit Eric Ten Hag's system just brilliantly. Would replace obviously an aging Varane who's leaving on a free, and he's an Ivory Coast international already, which I think considering his age is actually very impressive. I mean, Ivory Coast isn't like the best national team in the world, but it's still impressive getting to that squad of 20. Obviously, would cost a bit, but I think from what I hear, Sporting might lower their demands, so that's only a good sign. Moving on to Newcastle. Now, this one will be a bit of a shock because I'm sure you probably thought I would place him for another club, but I've chosen Newcastle mainly because of two reasons. One, I'm not sure if he has the homegrown at club status for Newcastle. If he does, that's a massive transfer for Newcastle. But even if he doesn't, he's still homegrown in England, so it sort of works. He's obviously had a bit of a mess season at Brighton, but I still think he's a very good player. Obviously, would get well on with Tonali, and obviously an England international and had a really good year last year. I think he finished third in the Golden Boot race for like 20 goals. And I rate Brentford a lot, but to do that in a side like Brentford's is very impressive. And obviously he did it the previous year as well. People will doubt him, and he will continue to impress. And I think he will get that big move away this summer. I think Newcastle will come in calling. I think Brentford will probably accept a £35 million bid, and I think that'll be the end of it. And he will do well at Newcastle, I have no doubt. Moving on to Forest. FFP again, sort of playing a bit of a role in this, but I still think he would be a good signing. Would be Chidozie Ogbene. Now, obviously, Ireland international / regular, playing really, honestly, very underrated in a very, very poor Luton side. As much as everyone loves them, I do as well. Wouldn't cost much, maybe even under 5 million, to be honest with you, and be a good cheap squad player. Could play. I think he could play right back and obviously right wing. I think there's a lot worse transfer links I've seen than Chidozie Ogbene. I think he'd be a really good player for Forest. Moving on to Southampton. This one I kind of found a hard time doing. I looked at Leeds not coming up, and I thought they could use that, and I think Archie Gray would be a great one for them. Obviously, Southampton of old was a bit of a club that used to develop a lot of youth players and sell them on for profit, a bit like a Brighton right now, for instance. I think they should probably try to go back to that, to be honest with you. And I think this would be a great step to start with. Archie Gray, obviously Leeds won't want to lose him, but I think you can offer him Premier League football. If you get there before a lot of the big clubs get him from, with regular game time consistencies, a decent wage, he's very versatile, can play midfield and obviously as well right back. High resale value as well. I think it's a no-brainer. I think he would take it. Then again, he is young enough to the point where he might just decide to stay another year in the Championship. But regardless, I think they should go in for him anyway. Just might as well test the waters, to be honest with you, because he's very talented young player. Moving on to the best club in the world, Tottenham Hotspur, my club. Now, I looked at it and I went, we need a new striker, because I think, from what I hear, the left wing plans have been halted, which I'm really hopeful means either Santiago or Moore get more game time, hopefully more, but Santiago is also brilliant as well. And from what I hear, there's not much interest in David even now, and I know a lot of people sort of will laugh because it's like Fabrizio Romano's sort of got, there's a little joke that Fabrizio Romano's got like a little deal with David, but I think honestly he's a very, very talented striker. He's scored for fun in Liga for a really long time. He's got a year left on his deal. Cheap deal, could be done for about £25 million. And I think Ange would really like him. He's not the strongest, but he does have an eye for goal. I don't know what's happened there. Moving on. Sorry about that. Probably had to cut that out, but just my PowerPoint decided to be an asshole. Moving on. West Ham. Kenneth Taylor was the shout I did. I know, it's a weird one, but I think he would be a good pickup for West Ham. He's only 22. I do think he's got a very high ceiling. A cheap deal could definitely be done due to Ajax not having a great year and him not having a great year either. Solid rotational option, could be great under Julian Lopetegui. And I think, honestly, you could do much worse as West Ham, to be honest. Yeah, and the final one I put is Wolves for Ermadin Demirovic. Fuck. Ermadin Demirovic. I think that's how you spell it. Apologies if it's not. 15 goals and 9 assists in the Bundesliga this year. 2 years left on his deal, so honestly, a deal could be done for 22, 24. He's 26, entering his prime, and I think would be a good striker under Gary O'Neill. That's a fucking car, gun bastard. I think honestly would be a really ambitious signing for Wolves. From what I hear, they may have to sell to buy, but I think you sell probably some of the deadwood and you bring him in, you have a much better season. Trust me on that. And with that, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you disagree with any of these picks, please leave your answers in the comments, and I will try to respond. Thank you, and until next time.